Hello, what is up, guys? The Strong Boys 19 here. So I am going to be doing a random live stream where I will be answering the questions that I have received 9 months ago from a video that I have done since pretty much late December of 2017, and I apologize immensely that it's been so long for me to do this, and I kept forgetting to do it. But now that I have remembered myself to do this, I am going to be answering the questions that you guys have sent me, and I've just reminded some people from my Facebook group page that I will be live streaming, which I am right now. And I hope this connection is still going to be going really well without any problems. Let's just hope so. So, yeah, I'm going to be answering the questions from the commenters. And also, if you have any questions that you want to ask me, music related, feel free to do so. You can type them all on that chat box, and I will do my best to answer them. Or I'm just going to be answering the questions and finish the stream from there. And the reason why I decided to do this stream it is because that if I was going to do a video on my mobile, which I'm using right now, the recording will stop automatically because I almost have got no space whatsoever to make a long video, and I don't want to use my webcam, which I have used uh, for my John Coltrane Love Supreme album review, but that's for another story. Well, I've just explained it, so I'm going off topic. Let's get on with it. Uh, 15 questions from Andy, also known as Mr. One Singularity. He asked a lot of music related questions. However, there are some that I did say to him that I'm not going to answer because it's not that they're bad, but it's not like one of these questions that I would want to answer because it's not like my type of thing to answer or to express what I would say about some of these questions, so I'll skip some of them. The first question is, what do you prefer, metal or rock? I always preferred, well, when I was younger, I have been a fanatic of metal non-stop than any other kind of music. It's not that I don't like the other kinds of music, but I was really into a lot of metal when I was a teenager. Obviously, from bands like Slipknot to Korn, Trivium, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, System of a Down, and Metallica, Slayer, and numerous other ones. But I still love metal, but I've been more on the rock phase really, because I've been listening to different styles of rock music from progressive to noise, experimental, um, and some rock elements with some fusion. I just love them both. Do you prefer melody or thrash? I pretty much do like both of them, to be honest with you. Whether music is either melodic or thrashy, it just depends on who I'm listening to that I decided to check out. So I do like both melody and thrash. Do you like the band Caius? I have not listened to them yet, and I think I have heard some good things about that band, but lately I've just been listening to some of the bands that I had been listening to um, that I've mentioned from my previous updates, like Oasis, The Velvet Underground, Swans, My Bloody Valentine, uh, Sonic Youth. But I will check out Caius. what is the best grunge album ever? The best grunge album ever. I haven't been listening to that many grunge albums, but I think my favorite grunge album, or the best grunge album ever, I should say, uh, possibly either Pearl Jam's 10 or Nirvana's In Utero. And I think I need to really get into the genre a lot more. And of course, I know others like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, but 10 and In Utero are possibly like the best grunge albums ever. I could be wrong, but I think I might be on 10 than In Utero as of now. Do you like the Screaming Trees? Again, I haven't heard of the Screaming Trees. I don't know what genre they are, but if they sound good to you, I'll check them out. Um, I'm just looking at some of the previous, well, not previous, the next question, sorry. Um, what is your definition of true evil? This is another one of those questions where I explain that it's something different, but I will give it a go. The definition of true evil, in my honest opinion, um, is just everything that is totally negative from human civilization, so much destruction, racism, and abuse from people and animals, and just anything at all that leads to, just downright negativity without anybody who has not got a soul to do what's best for other people. And that's why I really want to go into that phase of positive mental attitude, because I totally wish that the world would have been in a much, much better place. But sadly, it'll never, ever will be. But the definition of true evil, excuse me, um, it's just anybody that is just disgusting and a piece of scum for the things that I've just said. So yeah, I could go on to explain this better, but that's for another time. Um, what do you think of the X Factor TV show? I don't really like the X Factor. I do not watch talent TV shows at all. Because the thing about talent shows is that, yes, there are some that are extremely talented, and there are some that are like really bad. But what annoys me the most about any talent show, period, is that it's just that these contenders who have performed on stage will get either the most votes or votes that are not as high above others, and then one of them has to be the winner. And I think talent shows in general are just garbage, because if there's a group of separate, very talented, really well performed acts, they I just feel sad for them, because they, in my opinion, just don't deserve to be in a talent show, because I think they just deserve better, instead of not getting the pick for like the best act in the show, because there are some that are way better than the ones that do get the highest votes, but not as good as the better ones. Do you know what I mean? It's quite difficult to explain, but no, I hate talent programs in general. It's just an abomination and a shame and an insult to the talents from these people, in my opinion. Iommi or Page, Tony Iommi or Jimmy Page. As much as I hugely respect Jimmy Page, and I would definitely say I'm more of a Tony Iommi kind of uh, phase, because Tony Iommi, in my honest opinion, has been a bigger influence for me on the guitar, and he wrote some of the greatest riffs of all time. And I'm not saying that Jimmy Page didn't, but needless to say, Jimmy Page is still a rock giant, but I always stick to Tony Iommi as a guitar player and as a songwriter. I mean, Led Zeppelin had made some of the best songs of all time in rock music history, but I'm always down for Tony Iommi. Have you seen the movie Vanishing Point? I have not seen Vanishing Point at all, so I don't know if it's good or not. Ant or Dec? Neither. I'm not really interested in Ant and Dec. Some more questions from Mr. One Singularity, or known now as Andy. Top 5 worst Beatles songs. The worst Beatles songs, I don't think there are any Beatles songs that is like the worst, but I would say that there are some songs that are like one of the weakest. Personally, I'm going to try my best to think which Beatles songs are like one of my least favorites. I'm not really a fan of Dizzy Miss Lizzy, Honey Don't, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. Oh God, it's got to be something from the earlier pop Beatles period, not the later stuff. Let's see. So that's 3. I would say Hello Goodbye, but I'm not going to put that one in there because it is really cheesy, but it's fun at the same time because of the positive and joyous sound. I'm getting some comments from Max. I'm trying to answer some of the questions, but I'm looking at some of your comments. Listen, please, this song, 3 minutes, man. I'm interested in your opinion. I don't know what song you're on about, Max. I'm just still trying to think. 2 more of some of my least favorite Beatles songs. I would say Dig It, because Dig It is not really a song, it's just filler, in my opinion. Maggie May is a close second, although that does have a bit of like music in it, but it's not really a full song, even though it's just like a random, funny, traditional song that John and Paul covered from the Let It Be album, well, from the Get Back sessions, I should say. And I think my last one would probably be possibly something from Beatles for Sale. I'll have to look that album up, and actually I'm going to look it up now. But I don't think the Beatles have made like worse songs, as I've said earlier. They've made some that I'm just not fans of. So I'm looking at the track listing. Possibly another one from Beatles for Sale, which is I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. I mean, it's not that bad of a song, but I just don't think it's as strong as the other ones from that album. So sorry that it took a long while, well, some minutes to answer that one. If Paul McCartney came to your house, how would you welcome him and what would you do with him? Okay, so if Paul McCartney came to my house, I would welcome him and give him compliments that he's a huge inspiration to me and I adore his work with the Beatles. And speaking of McCartney, I still have not listened to Egypt Station yet, and I need to get to that album at some point. So I would welcome him with those compliments. And what would I do with him? I would definitely have a jam with him, play some Beatles songs, so that he'll be either on the piano or the bass, and we'll sing some Beatles songs together. That's what I would like to do with Paul McCartney. And I actually have not seen Paul McCartney live, but he's not touring in Birmingham, so it's a bit of a shame because I would have loved to see Paul McCartney live. And he's still touring to this day, still going very, very strong. The man who shot John Lennon quoted the book Catcher in the Rye. Have you read it? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? I have not read The Catcher in the Rye. Possibly I have heard that it's a very well received book, maybe, but I'm not really like a book kind of guy. And to mention Catcher in the Rye that Mark David Chapman had used from his plan to assassinate Lennon, I don't know if I want to check out that book. Well, I'm not much of a book reader, although I do have some books of autobiographies from Bob Dylan to Johnny Cash, Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen, Corey Taylor. I don't know. Is black metal just a load of unlistenable shite? Black metal may not be your kind of music, but I do love some black metal, and I don't have that many albums of black metal artists in my collection. I do have Emperors in the Night Side Eclipse, the 20th anniversary remaster, which I love, Dark Thrones Ablaze in the Northern Sky, and my favorite black metal album of all time is Satyricon Dark Medieval Times. But I don't think black metal is a shite genre, but I can tell you the genres that I don't like, and that is dubstep and deathcore. I mean, if there are some subscribers or anybody in general who loves those genres, I have no problem with it at all. I just don't like those two genres at all, period. But that's for another time. But I do love some black metal, and I haven't been playing any black metal albums for a long while. What's your favorite guitar manufacturer? As I accidentally spat everywhere. Sorry about that. My favorite guitar manufacturer is Gibson. Although I'm not really keen on the new 2019 new release Les Pauls. I mean, some of the colors do look absolutely beautiful, but maybe I would give them a go. But I bet they sound great. But Gibson nowadays has been quite all over the place. The Gibson Flying V, their newly released Flying V, is just hideous. I hate the look of that Flying V. It's just so ugly, and some of the prices from these newly made guitars are overpriced. And I have heard the news a lot about their bankruptcy that they went through months ago. But I'm very lucky to have guitars that are owned by Gibson, and I still think Gibson has got the best range of guitars, from the presentation, the feel and playability, and the sound. And I do love other guitars like the Taylor, to the Martin, the Fender, both the Stratocaster and the Telecaster. But I'm more of a Gibson Les Paul kind of guy. And I'm also a fan of the ES 335. Love that guitar type as well. But anyways, that's, I think, all or most of the questions that I have answered from Andy, or Mr. One Singularity, I prefer to say. But thanks for those questions. The next questions are from Greedy Selfish 97, who is quite a long time subscriber of mine, I think. So thank you very much for the support. And also to Mr. One Singularity, he asked 10 questions. First question: how would you rank Slipknot albums from worst to best? All right, so I'm gonna have a think about their discography. So from the first self-titled album to Point Five: The Great Chapter, and I have seen the news that they are making new material for a new album that would be probably released next year. So it'll be a follow up to Point Five: The Great Chapter. Sorry, I've been messing up the words for quite a bit, but I think Slipknot albums from worst to best. I'll say my least favorite is All Hope Is Gone. It's not a bad album. There are some tracks though that are good tracks, but they just don't really grab to me, and not as strong as other ones. So All Hope Is Gone is my least favorite. My second least favorite, I think it would probably be maybe Point Five: The Great Chapter, even though I did give it a high acclaimed review when it came out. I did a review of that album with a great friend of mine, Super Metal 1993, all in one word on YouTube. Be sure to check him out, by the way. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10, but I had been looking back at the album and there were some flaws, like some of the tracks are weak in places and some of the lyrics are quite poor. So I dropped it down to like, I think a 9 out of 10. My third, so like in the middle, my third is Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, and I probably will prefer that album over the other two that I've mentioned. But Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, was actually the first Slipknot album that I've ever listened to, and that album made me become a Slipknot fan from then to today. But yeah, Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. So my second favorite is Iowa, and I know that most Slipknot fans would say that's their best album, but it's not. For me, it's my second favorite. I still think it's a classic though. And my favorite is, as usual, the self-titled debut album. And the self-titled album has been ranked in my list in the top 50 favorite albums of all time, almost in the top 10. But, I always prefer their first album the most. Thoughts on the band Nine Inch Nails? Nine Inch Nails, I really do like them quite a lot, and I think Trent Reznor is an industrial genius. And I actually have not got any of their albums in my collection, and I do love some industrial type of music, like industrial metal of Rammstein and some Fear Factory. But I have to get Nine Inch Nails' discography, although I have heard of them before and I really do like their sound. So, yeah, I know that some of my friends are like big fans of Nine Inch Nails, especially Elliot, also known as EQP TV. He is a fan of Nine Inch Nails. Do you think that this trend of trap music will eventually die out? I gotta say, I'm not a fan of trap music. I'm not really that interested in listening to this generation of modern uh, rap, R&B, and trap stuff. It's not my cup of tea whatsoever. So I can't really say that this type of question properly. But I think trap music in general has been overflown with artists that make music with that type of style. Uh, it sounds nothing great whatsoever. It's just not inspiring or just interesting to listen to. I mean, they do try their best, but it's just the execution and whatever material that they had been writing, both musically and lyrically, it just sounds very, very bland and nothing special to me. So trap music, I'm not really a fan of that one. Thoughts on Electric Light Orchestra. I really do like that band a lot. And Jeff Lynne as well is another Brummy legend, Brummy icon. And even though, yeah, I did hear Mr. Blue Sky too many times, it is still a great song. But needless to say, I really do like Electric Light Orchestra. Do you know the exact number of albums and vinyls you bought in 2017? I really don't know how many albums I bought last year, whether they are releases that came out last year or a collection of albums that are not released from that year. But I really don't count how many albums I bought for each year, but I have bought quite a lot. So I just buy an album or a collection of albums from my collection and never really count how many I've collected because I have like hundreds. So that's just going to be impossible. Thoughts on the Beach Boys? I love the Beach Boys. They are one of my favorite groups of all time, and I do love Brian Wilson as a whole. Brian Wilson is another one of my most favorite legendary icons in music. I mean, when he made Pet Sounds, there's no other musician that can pull that type of creative freedom and artistry off like him. And I worship Pet Sounds. I'm still very thrilled to see him live. When he played all of Pet Sounds all the way through from start to finish live, besides playing some of his own solo stuff and some of the other Beach Boys classics. But yeah, I do love the Beach Boys. I haven't got that many albums from them in their discography. Actually, I only have Pet Sounds, so I'm terrible. I need to catch up and collect more. However, I have heard some of the tracks from the Smile sessions, and they were just amazing. Are you a fan of dark ambient music? I am a fan of ambient music, but not enough dark ambient music. Although I really do like the sound of dark ambient music, but I'm just not a fan of Varg's ambient stuff, you know, from the later Burzum material. I didn't really like those albums because they were just boring. But speaking of ambient music, I am more of I'm more of a person that loves ambient music that has some emotion and some really gentle atmospheric landscapey type of sounds. But dark ambient is a subgenre that I really need to get into a lot more because I've been a big fanatic of Brian Eno, who I love as well. So nonetheless, I'm going to check out some more dark ambient music. Thanks for mentioning that, by the way. But yeah, I love ambient music, but not enough dark ambient music. What inspires you as a musician and singer-songwriter? Well, it doesn't say singer, the question, but I don't know why the word singer popped into my head. What inspires me the most as a musician and songwriter is basically whatever inspires me musically from whoever I love listening to, because my main inspirations have always been a big selection of albums, whether it's from folk to rock, progressive, some experimental stuff. So anything inspires me as a musician from whoever I love listening to. Like, I'm a big fan of Jimi Hendrix, and he's my favorite guitar player of all time. Excuse me. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix is a big inspiration for me as a guitar player, along with Stevie Ray Vaughan, Peter Green, Paul Kossoff, Duane Allman, Tony Iommi, and Mick Taylor, Keith Richards, Nick Drake, Paul Simon. You know, there's so many guitar players that inspire me a lot. Neil Young as well, John Lennon, Bob Dylan. But I think the main thing that inspires me the most as a musician is to listen to an album that really captivates me and motivates me to create whatever kind of music I like, to be inspired by whatever I love listening to. Not to copy, but to make some material that is like a reminiscent of that piece of material, of whatever that is. What albums would you consider God tier? God tier. I don't really know. Greedy Selfish 97. Possibly, possibly the albums that are in my top 50 albums of all time. But I think God tier. I think you mean like from which couple of albums are like the best of the best, of God tier, best of like. But but I just still think the God tier best albums of all time are Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Revolver by the Beatles, besides John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band, Pet Sounds, Wish You Were Here. You know, you have to check out the other albums that are from my favorite albums of all time list if you want to as well. And actually, I want to make another video of putting in another 50 of my favorite albums of all time, but I need to like re-listen to the albums that I've loved in order to put them in the list. It's going to be in no particular order this time, but God tier albums: Sgt. Pepper and Revolver. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Oh gosh, hopefully nothing really too changeable. To work harder than ever as a guitar player and singer-songwriter, collect more and more records, be even more productive with my music, and be inspired by others. Hopefully gig a lot more and maybe get signed to a record label and release my new material officially. I don't know, but that's possibly most of the things that I would like to answer for that one. But that's 10 questions from Greedy Selfish 97, and thank you so much to you, man. And the last one goes to Metal 2019. Which Rolling Stones albums would you recommend to a newbie, to them like me? I only have Goat's Head Soup so far. Speaking of the Rolling Stones, I have not reviewed the rest of their albums. Again, for close to a year, I'm absolutely terrible. I'm sorry. But for Rolling Stones albums, I would recommend some of the other ones that I consider classics, like Sticky Fingers, Goat's Head Soup. No, not Goat's Head Soup, sorry. Even though we mentioned it. Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Let It Bleed, Beggar's Banquet, and some of the earlier Rolling Stones stuff. I would recommend Between the Buttons, which is, in my opinion, an underrated classic. Yes, I mistakenly said Goat's Head Soup, but that is actually becoming one of my favorite Rolling Stones albums, but not like a classic though. But it's still a really good album. I recommend Aftermath as well. Possibly just, those albums I've mentioned, mainly from the late 60s to the close to the mid 70s period from the Rolling Stones. So from the late Brian Jones period to the era of Mick Taylor, which I still consider to be like the best period from the Rolling Stones. But yeah, I hope you have listened to those kinds of albums from the Rolling Stones. Well, your question was posted 9 months ago, so you may have heard of them already. Yeah, I know. Like I said from the beginning, I'm so sorry that I didn't answer them like a week later or 2 weeks later after that video was posted. But yeah, that is all the questions that I have. Well, most of them, because I didn't answer some of them from Mr. One Singularity, from questions that I didn't want to answer. Well, skip them really. But yeah, that is pretty much it. And if you have any questions that you want to ask me during this live stream, feel free to do so. Or I could just finish the live stream from there. But I will be back to do another video to ask you the same things, like questions music related, from bands, albums, artists, and genres, all that stuff, all that jazz and all that shiz. I don't know why I had to say that, but you know, I really do enjoy doing these live streams because I want to try my best every time to share these kinds of streams around to other people, so that I could see more of the comments from different people, and to let other people watch, and just to get involved with me and have some talk about like the main topics of what I'm talking about in these live streams. And also from the previous live streams, I was using my webcam, but I'll be using my mobile phone. That is, if I have enough battery life. Yeah, and I just still prefer to do live streams music related, but in terms of the later ones, I will be using my mobile phone. That is, if the connection on my mobile wouldn't go off randomly. But all that aside, I think I might finish this off right now, actually. I know this isn't a really long live stream, but thank you to the YouTubers that have asked me some of the questions. Mr. One Singularity, sorry for the mess up. Medal 2019 as well, and Greedy Selfish 97. And I will be back to do another live stream of this same segment, because I really do love what I like to say and answer from people who ask me these questions. Anyway, I'm rambling on and I don't want to be all over the place. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will be back to do another video. I think it would be on another album review, or Holy Vlogfest, or something else. I don't know, we'll have to see. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will keep you guys posted for more videos and some streams in the near future.